Welcome to issue 257 of Critical Encounters, a podcast about Marvel Champions, a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. Here, we take a good look at that most critical piece of the game, the encounter sets. We'll discuss those poorly understood characters, unfairly labeled villains, and their various plans to shape humanity and benefit the planet, as well as the so-called heroes intent on thwarting them. I'm one of your hosts, Daniel, and joining me tonight is Scott. How are you?
You know, I am delighted to be here with you two. It's a bright part of my day. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of bright part of our days, we are also joined, of course, by Steve. Steve, how are you, sir?
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Excited. There's like an energy in the air.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement for something. For what? What are we excited about?
There's like this intangible energy brimming in the room tonight.
True. I mean, Daniel, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, Steve, I don't know what the reaction was to last week's episode, but I do know
we don't know yet because it hasn't released at the point of the recording.
But I do know that living in DC and having the friends that I do that work in the government, like so many people here do, including beloved former hosts of this show. It seemed I was unprepared for how quickly the country I knew could be dismantled and turned into something else, and how legislation of meanness could take over. I'm just so bewildered. I honestly, guys, I haven't slept for over 4 days. I'm not feeling very well. There's a lot of stress in my life, and that's true of so many people around me that I know and love. My own wife's job, there's just nebulous stuff there. Like, everything has changed like so quickly. And, in light of what we talked about last week, it's just sort of a continuing worsening, if that's a way to put it. But yet it gets me thinking about the importance of some things in our lives, my life. In these last couple of days, like, a few spots of joy have happened, and they've all happened around kind of the community of gaming and games in general. Like the other night, I taught my oldest daughter the cooperative game art project. I don't know if you guys know that one.
I've heard about that.
It's fantastic, and it's really just a really wonderful, quick little game. And we just got really into it, and the communication we were having between us, like, what's the best thing to do now? How do we strategize this? Like, it took us, me, I should say, it took me out of this stuff, and it felt good at a time where I haven't been. And so I'm thinking about the importance of our community, importance of like the games we play with each other and the people that we love. And I think how important that is now is just truly come into focus to me. Like, there's so much that we're powerless to deal with. And like, while gaming is definitely an escape, and maybe right now escapism is the worst thing, I don't know. But like, I do know that hour and a half that we spent together on the dining room table was absolutely 100% necessary. And so in this state of chronic and constant worry and fear that we're all living in, a lot of us are living in, it's like, you have the people you love, and you have those moments of joy that come from this hobby that we love and have embraced for much of our lives. And I think that's important. And so, yeah, that's what's on my mind. What's on my mind is mostly scary, bad stuff, but also those lights, those little tiny pinpricks of light, and that we hold to those and appreciate those as centrally important to our survival.
Yeah,
that's what I've got for you.
It's important to hold on to what you have and to help others have it as well, I think.
Yeah, I think that's true of, there are so many different things in the world in which we live that can disrupt our lives and be catastrophic, right? Whether it's actual natural catastrophes or, a total reversal of life, or, obviously in our country right now, we're experiencing an enormous shift and change that feels overwhelming. And it's not like other countries haven't seen similar things in their lives too. So reminding ourselves that we do have this community that can share joy is, I think, amazing. And it's one of the things that helps remind us that there are some things we have control over, right? And even if it's only for a little while, to be able to escape into that connection, right? That there are other human beings with whom we are connected that are a positive light and bring positivity back to us that we can share that with, I think is beautiful.
Right on. And that's partly our job, fellas. So, when we think about it that way, Steve, we're not here for just doom and gloom. What on earth is happening tonight?
Speaking of some positive lights, how about Lunar New Year, guys? Happy Lunar New Year. The whole year, Daniel, has gone by. No wonder you're so tired.
There it is.
Right. Yeah. Welcome to the year of the snake.
Feels
wow.
Yeah.
How right.
Okay.
Now, just keep in mind that in the lunar zodiac, or the Chinese astrology, right? The snake is not bad. The snake has all kinds of wonderful positive attributes. That is not. Yeah. It's not a year of bad things. The snake has some very wonderful characteristics. So it is a good year. It is not a bad year.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. But we're not here for just this, right, Daniel?
I hope for.
No,
I hope not.
No, we're here to talk about Marvel Champions, and we're going to do that with our very first Shadow of the Past, or the Age of Apocalypse wave. We're going to talk all about Bishop's Nemesis, Trevor Fitzroy, and Scott wouldn't be a minion of any quality if we didn't make him do some work.
Wow.
That's right.
So we're going to make him tell us all about Trevor Fitzroy, Bantam as well, and how they will figure into Bishop, our time-traveling X-Man guy. So,
all right. Scott, before you begin, have I seen this guy in a movie yet?
You have. Well, you haven't seen him in a movie, but if you've watched the old X-Men animated series, you have seen Trevor Fitzroy and Bantam. Did you watch the old 90s X-Men show?
Well,
Daniel is not super keen on that series.
I was just really annoyed by the robot voices, so I couldn't handle it.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah.
But I've seen them. I watched all that.
Excellent, Steve. Well, I'm sure you will remember, maybe, he's a major player, but he does like to hang out, or at least in the comics, or not in the comics, but in the X-Men show, he was connected to your favorite hunter turned idiot.
It could be anyone.
Okay. I was going to say,
AKA Nimrod.
Okay, Nimrod. All right.
So, Trevor Fitzroy, let me start by asking, have you ever known or seen someone who grew up super rich, pampered in absolutely every way, who has become so self-centered that they no longer give any thought or value to the lives of others?
No.
Never.
I couldn't even imagine what you're talking about.
Okay, so let me try to paint a picture. So maybe this person was born into wealth with no appreciation for the hard work that built it, right? The kind of person who has no real friends, even their collaborators think they're just a total a-hole, talking behind their back, maligning them to their face, but
Scott, I'm sorry, we're talking about comics.
So
it's art imitates life, Daniel.
So art imitates life. Now, let me be clear. Any similarities to persons real or imagined is entirely coincidental.
Really?
Yes, Daniel. Okay. Really?
Okay.
Or not? Art imitates life.
We'll find out when we talk about Trevor's hand size.
Geez. Right.
So now, I want you to imagine that this person we've been talking about died and was brought back to life. You were really happy there for a moment, maybe. Was brought back to life, but without their soul and their conscience.
Okay.
Enter Trevor Fitzroy. That's who we're talking about.
Okay.
This is Trevor Fitzroy. You already know him, or you at least can imagine him, right? So he is the illegitimate son of Anthony Shaw. Does the last name Shaw sound familiar?
Yes, Sebastian Shaw.
Yes. And what is Sebastian Shaw associated with?
The Hellfire Club,
Indeed.
X-Men,
So
stuff like that.
So Anthony Shaw. Now remember that Trevor Fitzroy. This is Bishop's nemesis. So the events of his life predominantly happen in the future, about maybe like 60 to 80 years in the future.
Are you talking Fitzroy or Bishop?
Fitzroy. We're talking about Fitzroy and Bishop.
Okay.
They know each other. They're coming from the same timeline. So Fitzroy is the illegitimate son of Anthony Shaw, who is the Black King of the Hellfire Club in his timeline. So you know that Fitzroy is born into both money and power. He's a mutant. We're not entirely sure if his dad is, but it seems pretty clear that he is. And Fitzroy has teleportation and energy absorption powers. And initially, he just is able to transport through space. So he can sort of teleport himself from place to place. But at a certain point, he learns that by absorbing the life force of another human being, he can actually make portals that allow him to pass through time.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a whole bit. He's sort of moving back and forth, and he does end up becoming a villain. He doesn't start that way, weirdly, but he does end up there. And you might know him, and let's see if you all can remember. So you've actually talked about some things that are connected intimately to Trevor Fitzroy. Do you all remember the Upstarts?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay. So do you remember who was involved with the Upstarts?
It was the Acolytes, right?
Yes, the Acolytes.
Fabian Cortez, particularly.
Yes, Fabian Cortez in particular, right? So he actually betrays the other Acolytes and murders Magneto to earn points in the Upstarts competition. Somebody else is also earning points in the Upstarts competition. It's Trevor Fitzroy. Trevor Fitzroy is the one who got the Sentinels to kill our good old boy from the South, Donald Pierce, right? And returned his head to get extra points from the Games Master. Shinobi is also in there. Shinobi is the other person in the Upstarts who is vying for points and is at that time the head of the Upstarts. They're trying to usurp his position. And so they're actually attacking the Hellfire Club, trying to gain access, trying to kill the leadership of it. Fabian Cortez is killing Magneto. They're all trying to get these points to rise up in the Upstarts. And every time we see the Upstarts, Trevor Fitzroy is somewhere in there. And he keeps coming back as sort of part of that group. Okay. So he's connected. He's connected to what we've seen, to some of the folks we've talked about.
I wonder if we'll ever get an Upstart modular set.
I have wondered that too. I think that would be interesting. There's some other characters in there we could see. He's also connected to the Hellfire Club, right? His dad is a member of the Hellfire Club. He's connected to some of the people from the Hellfire Club, both in the future and in the past. So he's weaving in and out of some of these groups we've already seen. And anytime we find the Upstarts getting up to no good, right? Well, you can bet that Fitzroy is there. It's very clear that the Upstarts hate him. The Upstarts hate him just as much as everyone else. But Fitzroy does have some game, and he's remarkably hard to kill or keep dead. So he keeps coming back, just like the 2-bit player he is.
Okay.
So you might be wondering.
You can't keep his head down.
Say, how does he come back? Yeah. He doesn't regenerate, right? Is it just...
we'll get to that.
Is it just
he
Marvel?
doesn't. He's just really hard to kill because he absorbs energy, right? So much like Bishop, he absorbs energy, which kind of brings us around to the main question, which is what in the world does he have to do with Bishop? And you might be wondering that.
I do.
You could, in fact, wonder that.
I wonder what he has to do with Bishop.
Let me tell you, he has a lot to do with Bishop, as a matter of fact. These two could not be more intertwined. They come from the same time frame. I mentioned that. But they actually used to work together on the same team of mutants trying to protect other mutants. They were members of the Xavier Security Enforcers. So named after Charles Xavier. Many, many years in the future, we have these mutants, and after a conflict, they form a sort of police force for mutants. So at one point, they get into this war between mutants and humans, and as part of the resolution from this conflict, mutants say, hey, we're going to police ourselves, and we're going to do that through the Xavier's Security Enforcers team. And this is where Bishop works. Okay. And so does Shard, Bishop's sister. And at a certain point, Fitzroy's dad says, hey, you need to get your life together. Go join that team. So he goes to work for them. He doesn't really want to. And he doesn't exactly get along well with Bishop. Bishop's the leader of the team. They fight all the time. And eventually, Trevor Fitzroy kind of goes criminal and they arrest him. So from the very beginning, these guys are not on the same team. Now, do you all remember who Bishop's friends are from the card game? Who's in his deck? Who are his signature allies?
Oh, it's what's his face and what's his face.
That's very articulate.
You're asking us about heroes,
right,
Mason
though, right?
and Bob or something? Jay and Silent
you
Bob?
didn't know
Jay
that I'd
and
be
Silent
asking
Bob.
questions. Jay and Silent Bob strike back.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Side note, I'm going to see them on Friday. So
That's
Really?
awesome.
Yeah.
Interesting. But it's actually like Malcolm or something, right?
Yes, Malcolm and Randall are the two allies in his kit.
Randall. How would I forget Randall? That's just such a great nerd.
If you look at the art, they wear the same costume, right? Because they all work on the same team. They're members of Xavier's security enforcers.
Sure.
And
Sure.
Randall, Malcolm, and Bishop are the ones who arrest Trevor Fitzroy when he's being a criminal and lock him up in prison. They do it not too kindly. They are all kinds of mean, but Trevor's dad's got connections. He's like, I'm going to get out of here. It's a whole thing. They throw him in prison. He's locked up. Nobody to steal energy from, so, he's not going to be able to break out. Until, and this is why it's important that we treat prisoners humanely, because a rat finds its way into his prison cell, and he drains the life from that rat, teleports himself using that energy, not through time, but just through space, close enough to some of the guards to drain their energy. And next thing you know, he's freed every single prisoner in this prison, the first of whom is a bald, green-looking man by the name of Bantam. We'll get back to him.
Okay.
And he is pushing these criminals into temporal portals back into the past. And so Trevor Fitzroy escapes back from the future 60, 80 years into the past and shows up in the middle of our timeline with the X-Men. But Bishop is not about to let these guys go without a fight. So he chases after them. He and his two trusty team members, Malcolm and Randall, escape also into the back to hunt down the criminals who escaped. Now, as a hero, we can imagine Bishop believes in the rule of law, and so he is going to look for a nonviolent means of arresting these people, right?
Doesn't seem to go with the Bishop that I know.
Well, you'd be right.
Okay.
They gun him all down.
He's kind of a bad guy, too.
It is execution style. They execute every last one of these criminals who escape into the past. The X-Men try to stop him, and he, buries them. He thinks that they are all part of Trevor Fitzroy's efforts to, confuse him and all this stuff. It's a huge fight. He fights the X-Men repeatedly while he and his team are trying to find all of these escaped criminals and kill them. And, of course, the escaped criminals are all horrendous human beings, mutants, all of them. But not entirely sure, and the X-Men are not super happy that he just executes every last one of them. But along the way, they do encounter some resistance, and eventually, one of these criminals kills Malcolm and Randall, both dead. So Bishop is stranded in the past alone, no way to get back to the future.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Great Scott.
And it's all Trevor Fitzroy's fault. And you can imagine that he blames Trevor Fitzroy for it. Yeah, can he get back to the future? I mean, eventually, kind of, but not really. It kind of goes... Trevor goes back and forth, back to the future. And weirdly, the most important part of his story is even further in the future, but maybe a little bit before the future we just talked about, because it's time travel stuff and it's confusing. Because Trevor Fitzroy was not always a bad guy. At one point, he was dating, and this is from a whole different set of comics, he was dating Cyclops' daughter, Ruby, and he was part of the Summers Rebellion that was fighting that conflict, remember, I was mentioning earlier on? So he's part of that conflict and actually saves a lot of mutants in it and defeats the evil version of Jamie Madrox, who's trying to eliminate all mutants.
That's Multiple Man.
This is obviously...
Right?
Yes, that's Multiple Man. It's terribly convoluted storylines. It's time travel. There's all kinds of travel back and forth through time. Trevor Fitzroy's in the middle of it. He's a good guy. And he gets killed by Cortex, which is Multiple Man's distorted duplicate that's been like converted into a bad guy. And Cortex like blasts Trevor Fitzroy straight through the brain with like a laser blast, kills him dead. But Ruby is really sad because he's her boyfriend. And even though he is already troubled and not a great guy, he kind of does whatever he wants. She asks one of the other folks to bring him back from the dead. She does it, knowing that they come back without souls. So she willingly knows that she's going to create Trevor Fitzroy, but her future self has already told her that years and years ago when she was a kid. So she does it anyway, knowing all the pain that Trevor Fitzroy is going to cause, but going back in time. The good guys don't look great. I'm just going to say this. Like, they are very willfully causing harm here, and they are not exactly exemplars for model behavior in any of this. Nevertheless, that's where Fitzroy comes from. We have a self-absorbed rich kid with no soul, a vampiric power to absorb life force, and the ability to travel freely through time and space. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, this one hit me in the 2 reels, Scott.
2 reels. I'm sorry, Daniel. But it does still get a little bit wacky because we haven't gotten to the bananas part yet. And what would a great show be
we
if
haven't?
we didn't have some bananas? So we have not. So
All right.
hopefully we're going to get a multiple banana score.
As soon as we bring up time travel, like the bananas meter has to go a little higher to be bananas.
It does.
That's
it does.
true.
The bar
That's
goes
true.
higher for bananas.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think what's really remarkable about Fitzroy is that for the most part, he causes very little trouble. He's not actually doing that much, right? He helps kill a few notable other bad guys most of the time. He's like using his power to steal stuff. He really just wants wealth and power, and anybody who'll give it to him, he'll use his powers to help them. Until that is, he becomes the chronomancer.
Okay.
Sure.
And I hear you wondering,
okay,
who is the chronomancer?
The time wizard. Woo.
He is. He is, in fact, the time wizard. So at a certain point, in the far future, we don't really know when, but it is a future in which mankind has almost no technology. So at some point, he finds his way into the far future, into a time when man is effectively reverted to an earlier state. And he truly comes into his own in his power. By draining people, he's able to power up robots and open portals and travel through time, and is like connected and able to control them 24/7. He no longer needs to be anchored. He really is the chronomancer. He intends to become time itself, right? To become the true master of time. He's trying to rival King here, right? In a very real way. He's nigh unstoppable. Like, really, he is. But as in most times and places, he's still the embodiment of selfish power, right? He is so self-absorbed that he can't conceive of people seeing him as a bad guy. He rounds up children and kills them, like indiscriminately, by absorbing their life force. And there are a few people who are connected to him who finally turn, including Bantam, right? Like, realizes that Fitzroy's crazy. This is like not the Fitzroy he knew. And after he makes like a little mistake, Fitzroy's like, "You're trash." And Bantam's like, "Hey, but you need, like, I anchor you. Like, what do you mean?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't need an anchor anymore." And he consumes Bantam.
Oh.
So our wonderful first criminal that Trevor Fitzroy ever freed, who somehow was his friend through all of this, right, served as his anchor in time, which is why Bantam is important. He kept a place where Fitzroy could always find back to. So wherever Bantam was, Fitzroy could travel through time, but he knew where Bantam was because he had sent him through time. He was still connected to him as somebody who traveled through his portal, so he was able to always get back to Bantam, and then if he sent Bantam into another place, it was sort of a temporal anchor for him. And as Chronomancer, he no longer needs him, and so he casts him aside as if he were nothing. But this comes to be his undoing. He draws exactly, just like Mike.
Yeah, right, Daniel. Just cast us aside,
or just like some other evil figure who, you know, brings somebody into their inner circle and then casts them aside when they're done with them. Truly no value for loyalty. And yet has demanded loyalty from Bantam for so long, and Bantam has willingly given it. So in the end, it's kind of his undoing, as it so often is. Arrogance will only get you so far. And the Chronomancer does meet his untimely end, and it's not the one that you would expect, right? He pulls Shard. He and Shard have a history. They were kind of lovers at one point. Shard, again, is Bishop's sister. Pulls her into the future, distorts her, turns into a robot. He's doing this to torture Bishop, because Bishop has chased him into the future. And he just wants to he could kill Bishop at any time, but he just wants to punish him, because that's the kind of nemesis he is. But it works against him. Shard overthrows his power, converts herself into energy. Bishop absorbs it, shoots her at him to kill him. Bishop misses. He totally fluffs it. And then somehow, in the midst of this, he manages to grab Trevor. Trevor thinks he's dead, as Trevor's about to escape through a portal to become the Master of Time. The portal closes, and this is straight out of the Infinity War, right? Where the guy, Doctor Strange, closes the portal on him, right? Chops the arm off. Okay, so this happens to Trevor Fitzroy, only it's the whole half of his body.
Oh.
And so he is his own demise.
Oh, couldn't happen
to
a nicer.
Could have happened to a more soulless person.
Yeah.
May that
so there we go.
happen soon. I mean,
it happened. What?
Sorry.
Portals.
Portals through time.
Portals are tricky. Yeah.
Portals are tricky like that. You got to watch out for those portals. Wormholes, whatever you want to call them. I think some notable things about him, right? We talked about his wormholes. They stick around for some time, but they only go one way. So he can send people through time, but you can't go back. So if somebody tries to go back through, it converts their own energy to power the portal and destroys them. Also, if Trevor's not the one sending you through the portal, if he's not powering you to pass through it, generally speaking, it is disastrous. So two people try to go through the portal at one point, and it merges them into this horrendous being. It can splice your genes and stuff, because it pulls from your life force to operate. So really only Trevor can do it. It's like a 1-to-1 power. Sometimes that math is a little funny in the comics, but usually he has to absorb life from somebody to send somebody through a portal. So if you think of all the people he sent through a portal, he killed at least one person per person who went through a portal. So he's killed a lot of people. Draining people to do that always kills them. They don't live afterwards. He can teleport through space using his own power. It drains him a little bit, but not completely. But to travel through time, he's got to consume a whole person, which is very first law of thermodynamics. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think I read that in my physics book.
Yeah.
That came up a lot.
Villain physics book. Yeah.
Villain physics 101.
Yeah.
But he does have to touch people to absorb their power. So that's kind of his key stuff. If you want to read about him, we can put some pieces about sort of his initial runs and some of the different comics he comes in. He kind of pops in and out. So you can throw those in the show notes, maybe.
Sounds good.
You know how you also know he's a bad guy?
Oh.
His hair. And look, we're 3 bald dudes. I get it. But his hair is just so...
Is it green?
It is green. You just know what he's like based on that floofy little hairstyle and his goatee. And yeah.
I think the mustache and goatee really sell it. They really push it to the next level of evil.
And then poor Bantam here. He's the bald guy, right? So
yes, he is.
It's some poor security guard in one of the arts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, that was a very interesting.
Thank you, Scott. Good learning.
Yeah, for this.
That was my pleasure.
Timeless type of villain.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, shall we look at the cards, guys?
I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay, so Bishop's Nemesis, Trevor Fitzroy, comes in the Age of Apocalypse box. 5 total cards, 4 by title, plus the obligation. Take it away, Mike. He's not here. Right? He's still not here. I was hoping he'd pop out of one of his portals, but he's not. So, Daniel, you want to do the obligation?
Thought he would have felt obligated to do that. All right. This is Bishop's obligation. Fear the future. Give to the Lucas Bishop player. You may flip to alter ego. Choose. Exhaust Lucas Bishop. Remove Fear the future from the game. Or discard this card in each resource card from your hand. If no resource cards are discarded this way, this card gains Surge.
Got a standard.
Yeah.
Standard, but now I've only played Bishop maybe twice and got this every time, of course, because that's how it's supposed to be.
You're a
I
good
just let
villain.
it surge.
Did you have to discard a bunch of resources?
No, I always got it at a good time.
Oh,
That's
wow.
lucky.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, okay.
I have definitely
You know,
had it where it's like, oh, you have 4 resources in your hand and you're exhausted?
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. It's like,
Oh, no, that's awesome. Yeah.
I recently got it, and I had 9 resources in my hand.
yeah.
Oh,
So
And you're
I
exhausted?
definitely was doing the first option. I
Oh,
was not
okay.
exhausted. I do not defend with Lucas Bishop, so something's got to force me
Well,
to exhaust.
you kind of don't have to with him, right?
You don't have to.
You just
You kind of don't
take
want
the
to.
hit and then do his thing to, yeah.
But if you don't have the heal card out yet, right? Or
Yes,
if you
it can be
can't
painful.
take the, because you have to actually take the damage before you heal the damage.
Yes.
It doesn't like prevent it. So, if you have 4 or 5 health left and the 6 attack coming at you, kind of have to defend, right? So,
Yeah.
You do.
yes,
It gets
'cause
tricky.
the timing is important for this card. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is that Randall dead in Bishop's arms?
Yes, it is. Yes. Malcolm has more tech and stuff on his face. And this is probably at the time when Malcolm and Randall both get killed by this set of group of criminals at the same time. But
Okay.
Randall has dying last words, I think, with Malcolm or with Bishop. He does. In the comics, he does die. Bishop is like sort of cradling him as Randall dies. So this is very comic accurate.
Yeah, because this is not a comic piece, but
It is
like you said,
not.
looks like one. Okay.
A plague on both your houses. I'm sure that's what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, a bog standard obligation.
Yes, very much so.
Brings me back to Corset.
Yep.
So, well, I think we should hear about the man of the hour here.
Agreed. All right, Scott.
Right?
God, his very name says douchebag.
It does.
Gee.
He reeks,
Trevor Fitzroy.
of a-hole.
God, I
Yeah.
hate him.
He's
He's my least favorite character in the game by far.
Yeah. He looks schmarmy as all get out.
Yeah,
That's
it
true.
has nothing actually to do with the origin story. It's his face.
He
and
just
his
looks that
name.
way.
Yeah.
That weird
Sorry to
purple
interrupt. Go
smock.
ahead, Scott. Excuse me.
The embodiment of he's sort of the embodiment. Well, anyway. So he has this is a minion. Trevor Fitzroy, he is a minion. He has 2 scheme, 3 attack.
Wow.
He has the elite and temporal traits, 5 health, quick strike. We love the quick strike. And a forced response after Trevor Fitzroy attacks and defeats an ally. If Portal Through Time is in play, place 2 threat on it. Otherwise, find it and reveal it.
Oh,
So he has 3 boost icons as well. Standard Nemesis. I like this a lot. The forced response is very thematic because he, is absorbing these sort of minor characters and using their
Right.
power to open time portals. So
And he pops out of a portal and you don't realize it behind you.
that's right.
Hits you, or your ally takes the attack for you because you've already defended for the ally or for the villain. So then, he drains the ally's life.
Yeah. And if you took a lot of damage from a hit from the villain, you may not have enough health, even if you wanted to absorb this, like you were saying, to
Right, 3 more.
maybe draw more cards with Bishop's ability. You might not have enough health to do that because Trevor Fitzroy hits hard, right? 3 attack is a lot.
hits
And
hard,
it
hits
could put you in
fast.
a place where, if you don't, maybe you already used your heal. He does. It's not an inconsequential amount of damage. Like you might need to block it with an ally. So it's a solid minion,
Absolutely.
and he's elite.
Elite's always good, right? So, Steve, this card mentioned something called Portal Through Time, though. Maybe you should tell us about that.
Okay, Portal Through Time is the Nemesis side scheme here. Trevor Fitzroy uses his time portals to commit crimes and escape justice. Doesn't seem like a surprise. 4
It is
threat.
not
No.
Just 4 threat.
just for
Forced interrupt. When a temporal card is revealed, it gains surge. Limit once per phase. Has an acceleration and 3 boost icons.
Okay. And we have
Okay.
lots of temporal cards in the game, right?
Plenty in the Kang stuff.
yeah.
And there's some other ones.
Okay.
So a temporal card is revealed, it gains surge once per phase. So if 7 temporal cards get revealed, only one of them surges, right?
That's correct.
I would like us to enter a game where 7 temporal cards show up in a row.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need like this, the What about the Strife Nemesis? Does that have temporal cards?
I don't know.
Or the Cable Nemesis, I mean?
Definitely
That Strife
King and the Anachronauts.
Kang certainly does.
And
Oh, yeah.
T-Rex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Now,
Ancient Warriors and all them.
You could have a temporal showdown for sure.
when okay, I'm playing Bishop and I play my uniform, which is temporal, is it revealed and does it surge?
Doesn't revealed specifically mean from the encounter deck?
Probably.
I thought, now, far be it from me to be that guy about rules, but I thought revealed only ever meant on an encounter card.
I mean, it sure seems like that's what it is. But,
Yeah.
you know,
But hey, I'm with you. I love the idea that you could.
you can play your
put on
own
your
card and
armor
it surges into a bad thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes. So I've been playing Bishop a bunch lately in preparation for the show, of course. And I actually had this come up where I had Portal Through Time on. I wanted to play one of my cards, and my first thought was exactly that, Daniel. I was like, did I serve this? But you are correct. It's not revealed. Let's put it to play. So
Yeah. It's played or put into play. Yeah.
yeah.
Still, I don't know. Critical Encounters house rule.
Yeah.
Yep.
Deal yourself an encounter card whenever you play a temporal card once per phase. I like that rule. So what about this anchor of his?
Yeah. Let's hear about him.
All right. Bantam is a unique minion with 2 scheme to attack, 3 health. Temporal traded when revealed. If Portal Through Time is in play, place 2 threat on it. Otherwise, find Portal Through Time and reveal it. 2 boost icons. Wow, this set really wants you to get Portal Through Time.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Must be
Bantam's
important.
putting out quite a bit. He's putting out the 2 threat and he's surging. So that's cool, which keeps the Portal Through Time out longer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve, did you mention that Portal Through Time was a acceleration icon?
I did. Yep. Real
Okay,
quickly
okay.
before the boost icons. Yeah.
Okay. Because that's really all it's doing. Is that big of a deal? I don't know.
Oh, what
I
it's
think-
doing, it's also surging temporal cards.
Yes.
Well,
I think that's
true.
what it's really doing. I think that's the big, not that there's going to be a ton of them unless we've stacked the deck like we were talking about with temporal cards, but
Which would
I
be
think that's
fun.
the big
I think
reason
it'd be
why
fun.
you don't want to keep it out. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's got to be some kind of treachery or something that anchors this set too.
Of course. What is Trevor Fitzroy if not up to some sort of temporal trickery, which is in fact his treachery? It's temporal traded, and when revealed, discard a card in your hand with the most printed resource icons. Place 1 threat on each scheme for each resource icon
Wow.
on that card. So Fitzroy loves to steal your shawarma, and he says that's why I love time travel. No matter how many times I rob this bank, they're always surprised.
It's
And it
such
has
good flavor text.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Oh,
And temporal trickery has 2 boost icons, so pretty solid boost effect there.
Yeah, and there's 2 of these in there, so you can rob the bank twice.
You can.
Yep.
This one's pretty brutal. If you have side schemes out and you're playing as Bishop and you actually get it, right? Like you're putting on average 2 threat
On every
on
scheme.
each scheme, right? Not just the main scheme, every scheme.
but I love playing this when some loser next to you is playing Cable.
And he's added a bunch of player side
He
schemes
just
and
starts adding
yeah.
a whole bunch of stuff onto schemes.
Mhm.
Like that would count, right?
Yeah,
Yes, it
they're
does.
player side
Yeah.
schemes are schemes. Yep.
Yeah. So take that, Cable.
Yeah, Bishop and Cable do not get along.
No, they don't. Okay, so there's the set. You got a standard obligation, an interesting main minion, a little sidekick guy, a couple interesting treacheries, side schemes doing its thing, and it feels like at least the treacheries are interacting with Bishop. The lore
Yeah.
is interacting with Bishop for sure.
Yep.
I kind of like the Trevor's going after if he defeats a minion, and he defeated Malcolm and those guys. It seems like a good Nemesis set. It seems like it's appropriate for Bishop. I like it.
I do too.
It hangs tight to its theme, so that's cool.
How would you score it?
Yeah, how would we score it, Daniel? What would you give it?
I don't know. I mean, it's thematically consistent, as I said, and so like that's cool. I don't really know how big of a deal it is because you know what? I've played Bishop and I've never seen this guy come in. So I have no lived experience of Trevor Fitzroy's puissance. But it seems like this set would be pretty annoying in specific situations. So I'm going to give it, I'm going to give it a B+. I can see what it's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Fair. Scott?
Were you not playing with Pursued by the Past? The standard 3?
Yeah, probably.
I've definitely seen him a lot.
Yeah.
But I think this one for me, it's like an A for theme, but overall, I'd probably give it a B, maybe a B+. I think like you said, it's not really that bad. Temporal Trickery is kind of a pain, but realistically, the set isn't doing. It's not a really, really rough one. I think Bishop can deal with it.
You're absolutely right. And looking back, I give it a C-. Only one of these cards actually deals with the whole resource thing of Bishop.
Well, if you're talking about Temporal Trickery, it doesn't even have to be a resource card. It's just resource icons.
Icon,
So,
right. That could be anybody. That could be anybody.
Yeah, if anybody gets it, it might just be one, right? I mean, it's still discard a card from your hand, which is frustrating and annoying.
Sure.
And then it's also put threat out. And you can't quite control what it is. I mean, you can because most of your cards are going to be 1. Maybe you have a 2. Doubtful you have any 3s, really.
Yeah, this is a C-. I hate it.
Tough if you've got pouches or something.
Yeah.
It's not
bad
doing
at all. All of these cards should have something to do with resource. Yeah.
Theme-wise, though, this thing is 100% on point. It goes real heavy on the portal through time, but that, like you mentioned, that side scheme isn't terrible, right? If it had a hazard, I think this would be amazing. But it's only an acceleration, so you're just having that one extra threat with the potential for like a temporal card to surge. But if you're clearing it and it's coming back out, it's not a big deal because, again, it's just an acceleration icon. So if you leave it out for a turn, it's probably not the end of the world. And it can only surge once per phase, so it's not like you're going to get a ton of cards. You're only going to get one extra card. So at worst, it's a hazard. Most of the time, it's an acceleration. It could definitely be rougher. I think it's a solid B.
And I look at these Nemesis sets to counter what the hero is trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't see how this works for that. And so, I mean, Bishop is a fairly potent hero, right?
He's very strong.
And so, does this Nemesis counter what he's trying to do and what makes him strong? I don't think so.
No,
this is a Nemesis set that focuses on the minions story and his own thing. It's not really a counter to the hero, right? It's what's Trevor's story. These cards interact as with Trevor and Trevor's story, but they don't really touch into Bishop too much.
They really don't.
Yeah.
And the truth is that Trevor and Bishop don't really fight that much. And most of the time it's just Bishop catching Trevor and throwing him in jail. Like there's not usually a fight there where Trevor is on par. It's not like some of those other Nemesis. He's more just constantly causing trouble off doing his stuff, and Bishop has to go track him down. So in some ways, the theme there really does fit their sort of interaction, but I don't think, kind of like we discussed about him, he never really does anything super bad until he becomes the Chronomancer. So,
and this is not that time period, clearly.
This is not that time period. Yes.
Okay. Well, okay. We have your rating. This is our first Shadow of the Past for the whole wave.
Is that true? Oh my goodness.
It is.
Yeah, we just started the box. We've only done one. Yeah, we've got quite a few to go. Scott, thank you for the wonderful lore.
So if somebody else wanted to share how they would use their temporal wormholes, how would they contact us?
Right. You can just teleport right into the lair, or if you can't do that, you can email us at criticalencounterspod@gmail.com. We are Critical Encounters on Facebook. You can find our YouTube, Twitch, or Patreon by searching for Critical Encounters Podcast. And on Discord, we are Vardane, Big Foam Loaf, and Lexicon. If you like our show, tell your friends. If you don't like our show, tell your enemies. Bantam, take us out.
Time to go, Trevor. I feel like Bantam, like all bald individuals, has to have an inherent whining voice.
Yeah,
With
clearly.
get it sort of embodies that Iago Frankenstein sort of figure, right?